The Simon Commission 1927 and the Nehru Report 1928. The Simon Commission background. It was the Government of India Act 1990 that announced that in 10 years from 1919, a Royal Commission will be set up to report on the working of the Act. The hierarchy was introduced in India by the Government of India Act 1990. The Act also promised that a commission would be appointed after 10 years to review that the working and progress made on the measures taken through the Act. The Indian people and leaders wanted a reform of the hierarchy form of the government. The Secretary of State for India, Lord Birkenhead, had betrayed Indians on account of their perceived inability to formulate a concrete scheme of reforms through consensus among all sections of Indian political science. Lord Birkenhead was responsible for setting up the commission. Introduction. The Indian Statutory Commission, also known as the Simon Commission, was an all-white 7-member commission established by the British government on November 8, 1927, which was led by Sir Johnson Simon. It was under the leadership of Johnson Simon that an English-based group visiting India created ripple effects on the ground. As a result, the Simon Commission faced strong reaction from noted politicians like Jawaharlal Nehru, Gandhiji, Jinnah, the Muslim League, and the National Congress, as they were not taken into confidence while formulating the report. The Government of India Act 1919 provided for the appointment of the Commission to study the progress of the governance scheme and suggested new steps after 10 years. In 1928, the Commission arrived in British India to investigate constitutional reform in Britain's most popular and important possession. One of its members was future Labour Party leader Clement Attlee, who became committee to India's self-government. Why was Commission sent to India? The Commission was sent to India to expand the participation of Indians in the government affairs. The Parliament of UK had passed an act called the Government of India Act 1919. The act introduced the system of hierarchy in British India, which was opposed by Indian nationalists leader who demanded the administrator to review the system. The act envisaged a system of review of reforms after 10 years to study the analysis, the constitutional progress, and to bring in more reforms. The reason behind forming the commission earlier was conservative governance fear of losing to the Labour Party in the upcoming elections. The special power for the safeguarding of province and protecting of minorities came under the governance power. Recommended representations of Council of State could not be chosen on the basis of direct elections but by indirect elections through provisional council, which is more or less just like a modern day election procedure or proportional representation. Since conservative government did not want the Labour Party to take a British India, it constituted a commission consisting of 7 British MPs to study the constitutional progress in British India as promised earlier. Boycotting the Simon Commission. People in India were infuriated and felt insulted for the commission, which had been constituted to analyze and recommend constitutional reforms for India, did not have single Indian member. The Simon Commission was strongly opposed by the Congress and other nationalist leaders and common people. Many protests were carried out individually as well as in groups, urging the British administration to review the constitution of the Commission. In December 1927, the Indian National Congress, in its meeting in Madras, resolved to boycott the Commission. Led by Muhammad Ali Jinnah, some of the members of Muslim League too had made up their minds to boycott the Commission. Protest and the death of Lala Lajpat Rai. Lala Lajpat Rai was an Indian writer and politician who was active in Indian National Congress. He was known as the Lion of Punjab or Punjab Kesari for the passionate brand of patriotism and forceful vocalism against British authority. Lala Lajpat Rai led a non-violent demonstration on October 30th, 1928 to protest the Simon Commission's arrival in Lahore. James Scott, the superintendent of police, stopped the march and instructed his officers to lathi charge the protesters. Lala Lajpat Rai was specifically targeted by the cops, who struck him down in the chest. The action severely injured Lala Lajpat Rai. He passed away on November 17, 1928, from a heart attack. His supporters blamed the British directly and pledged to exact revenge on them. Scott was to be assassinated by Chandrasekhar Azad, Bhagat Singh, and other conspirators, but the revolutionaries mistakenly shot J.P. Saunders as Scott. Aftermath of the Commission. The aftermath of the Commission says the Commission recommended the elimination of hierarchy system and introduced of representative government in several provinces in its report from May 1930. Motilal Nehru represented his Nehru report in September 1928 to refute the Simon Commission accusations that Indians still lacked constitutional consensus before the report was even released. The Nehru report promoted giving India full internal autonomy along with dominion status. The British government attempted to calm the public while report was still unpublished by stating the Indians' opinion would be taken into consideration in any future exercise, and that India's Dominion status would follow naturally from constitutional improvements. The Government of India Act 1935 was a result of the recommendations of the Simon Commission. The Nehru Report 1928. Introduction. The Nehru Report of 15th August 1928, approved on 28th August, was a memorandum to appeal for a new dominion status and a federal setup of government for the Constitution of India. In November 1927, the British government appointed the Simon Commission to review the working of Government of India Act 1919 and propose constitutional reforms for India. The commission did not have a single Indian member, which recalled the leaders of nationalist movement. While the British acknowledged the discontent, it did not change the composition of the commission and instead asked Indians to prove that they could draw up a constitution themselves. A similar challenge was made in 1925 by Lord Birkenhead, then Secretary of State for India. As a result, leaders of the nationalist movement represented to the challenge by drafting the Nehru Report 1928. In December 1927, at its Madras session, the Indian National Congress set up an all-parties conference to draft a constitution for India. On May 19, 1928, at its meeting at Bombay, the all-parties conference appointed a committee with Motilal Nehru as its chairman. The recommendations of the Nehru Report. India should be given a dominion status with the parliamentary form of government with bicameral legislature that consists of Senate, of House and of Representatives. It recommended responsible government at the centre and in provinces. The Senate were to comprise of 200 members elected for 7 years, while the House of Representatives should consist of 500 members elected for 5 years. Governor General will act on the advice of Executive Council. It was to be collectively responsible for the Parliament. Provisional councils have a 5-year tenure handed by a governor acting on advice of the Provincial Executive Council. There should be a federal form of government in India with residuary power to be vested in centre. There were to be no separate electorate for minorities because it awakens the communal sentiments, therefore it should be scrapped and joint electorates should be introduced. It recommended 19 fundamental rights, including equal rights for women, right to form unions, and universal adult suffrage. Full protection to cultural and religious interests of Muslims, complete dissociation from state and religion. Muslim League's reaction. The process of preparing the constitution framework began enthusiastically. However, communal differences crept in Nehru Report got involved in controversies over the issue of communal representation. The League's leader rejected the Nehru's proposal. In reaction, Muhammad Ali Jinnah drafted his 14 points in 1929, which became the core demands of the Muslim community put forward as the price of their participating in an independent united India. The main objective of Muslim League were the 1916 Congress Muslim League Agreement Lucknow Pact provided separate electorates and weightage to Muslim community, whereas they were rejected by Nehru Report. The League realized that while they would be a minority in the provinces of northeast and northwest of India, and hence would control the provincial legislature, there would always be a minority at the centre. Thus, they demanded, contrary to Nehru Report, that residual power go to Jinnah's 14 points. The 14 points of Jinnah were proposed by Muhammad Ali Jinnah during all parties meeting of 1928 in response to Nehru Report. It basically consisted of 4 Delhi proposals, that 3 Calcutta amendments and demands for constitutional of separate electorates and reservations of seat for Muslim in government services and self-governing bodies. The first point was the form of the future constitution should be federal with the residuary power vested in the provision. Second, all provinces must be given equal autonomy. Third, all legislatures in the country and other elected bodies shall be constituted on the definite principle of adequate and effective representation of minorities in every province without reducing the majority in any province to a minority or even equality. Fourth, in the central legislature, Muslim representation shall not be less than 1/3. Fifth, representation of communal groups shall continue to be means of the separate electorate. At present, it shall be open to any community at any time to abandon its separate electorate in favor of the joint electorate. Any territorial distribution that might at any time be necessary shall not in any way affect the Muslim majority in Punjab provinces. 7. Full religious liberty shall be guaranteed to all communities. 8. No bill or resolution shall be passed in any legislature if 3/4 of the members of any community in that body oppose the bill. 9th. Separation of Sindh from Bombay. 10th. Reforms should be introduced in the NWFP and Balochistan on the same footings as in the other provinces. 11th. Muslims should be given an adequate share in all services having due regard to the requirement of efficiency. 12th. The constitution should embody adequate safeguards of the protection of Muslim culture, education, language, religion and personal laws, as well as Muslim charitable institutions. 13. One-third representation shall be given to Muslims in both central and provisional cabinets. 14. No change will be made in the constitution without consent of the outcome of the Nehru report. The Nehru report infuriated Muslim political circles in Bengal, who saw it as a threat to Hindu dominance. The principle of separate electorates had become the sine qua non of Muslim politics in Bengal, and its sudden rejection was viewed by Hindus as a betrayal of the Muslim cause. They claimed that because of their provisional majority, they should be granted a majority in the legislature, and that separate electorates should be maintained to protect them from economic and educational exploitation of Hindus. Hindus saw no logic in these demands and instead claimed that despite of being a population minority, they fully deserve their current majority in the House based on the past and the current capacity. Thank you.